Hello all, welcome to the third session on the first unit of the last module of the text issues that matter. The module is titled Understanding Refugees. This session will try to understand the nature of the refugee population and their problems in comparison with immigrants and ethnic minorities. We will also deal with two different theoretical approaches in understanding the problems of refugees. Refugees are generally considered a homogeneous group. That means people of similar nature. But they are not. They are different in many aspects, like nationality, ethnicity, race, religion, culture, language, gender, class, disability, socio-economic status, etc. Take for example the case of the Sri Lankan Tamilians who came to India as refugees during the civil war in Sri Lanka. They spoke the same language, that's true. So linguistically they are a homogeneous group. But they belong to different religions. They belong to different socio-economic status. Their educational qualifications were different. They were male and female. That means there was gender difference. So even though they were linguistically homogeneous, they were different in many other aspects. So refugees are not a homogeneous group. They are different among themselves in various aspects. Therefore, the problems faced by each subgroup of refugees could also be different, which makes it extremely difficult to generalize the problems faced by the refugees. Therefore, the solutions of the problems also cannot be the same. Now let's compare refugees with immigrants and ethnic minorities. Now there is one problem that all these three groups share. That is, all these three groups have a culture and a lifestyle different from the mainstream society, and they only have a subordinate position in the society. But refugees are different from immigrants and ethnic minorities. Let's take immigrants first. See, immigrants are people who have voluntarily moved out of their country in search of greener pastures, for better economic opportunities. But refugees are forced out of their country in fear of persecution. Refugees are different from ethnic minorities as well. Even though both of them occupy a subordinate position, ethnic minorities have a home of their own. But refugees are people who have lost their homes and are unable to find a new one. They have lost everything that they had. They have nothing to claim as their own, not even a family. What do you think is the reason for countries not accepting refugees? Is it because there is no space in that country? Is it because there is no geographical space or land area in the host country to accommodate these people? Is it because they do not have the financial facilities or the financial capacity to feed and protect these people? Is it because they do not have the financial resources to cater to the needs of the people and to protect them, to feed them? Actually, none of these is the problem. The problem is, quoting Zanos, Mallika Misra says, the lack of political space. The host countries do not want their socio-political landscape to be changed. When a large number of people of a different culture, language come in, the political status quo changes. But the host countries do not want that to happen. They do not want their language, culture and religion to be changed or affected by the influx of refugees. Therefore, the problem of refugees in our time is not lack of geographical space, but a lack of political space. In other words, the problem of refugees in our time is therefore a symptom of uprootedness or homelessness, where space is not really geographical but rather political. Now let's have a brief idea about the historical development of the term refugee. The term refugee was originally coined to refer to the French Protestants who fled from the forced conversion policy of the French state in the 17th century. In the 18th century, following the American Revolution, it began to refer to the people who fled their country in time of distress. The term refugee got international dimensions after the First World War, that is after 1922. The movement to protect refugees began with the Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. The 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights defined a refugee as an individual who doesn't have the protection of a national state. 1951 Convention on the Status of Refugees laid down the general guidelines for the protection of refugees. We have already gone through the definition given by the same convention. Now, though the convention has laid down the guidelines to protect the refugees, no country is legally liable to follow these guidelines. No country is duty bound to obey the guidelines or to protect the refugees. Therefore, many countries, including India, have not signed the 1951 UN Convention on the Status of Refugees. Why do you think that many countries haven't signed this agreement? The reason is, signing such an agreement will affect their sovereignty. No country is willing to sacrifice their sovereignty for the protection of the refugees. So what do the refugees need? They need to protect their native culture and identity. In other words, they require acculturation and integration, not assimilation with the host society. So what is meant by acculturation? It means learning to live successfully in a different culture and helping someone to do so. Refugees want to live successfully in the host country without losing their identity, their culture, their traditions, and their way of life. They want the host country to make them an essential part of the host country. Refugees do not want them to be assimilated. In the process of assimilation, they will lose their cultural identity. Therefore, they do not want to be assimilated. Instead, they want to be integrated. But this is not usually possible. Therefore, they experience a constantly challenged identity. They are uprooted from their homeland and transported to an alien land. They experience a constantly challenged identity, perpetually required to mediate between a scattered historical inheritance and a heterogeneous present. So what do you mean by scattered historical inheritance? Refugees are people who have lost everything. They have lost everything they had. Their language, their culture, everything they had inherited from their ancestors, they have lost. That's what is meant by the scattered historical inheritance. Then, what do we mean by the heterogeneous present? Now they live in an alien place which is entirely different in their language, culture, and religion. They have to struggle hard to adjust themselves to mediate between their past and the present, because the present is entirely different from their past. So they have lost their roots. Simon Weil said, "To be rooted is perhaps the most important and the least recognized need of the human soul." How does a human being become rooted? A human being becomes rooted because of his participation in the life of a community, which preserves certain particular treasures of the past and have certain expectations of the future. This participation is brought about by place, conditions of birth, profession, and social surroundings. Since the refugees have lost all this, they have to reroute themselves in a new place. But rerouting is a difficult task. It involves changes in legal and political status, ruptures in families, struggles for economic mobility, and tensions between older social and cultural values and the norms and values of the new society. Changes in legal and political status means the refugees have lost all their rights. They do not have the protection of a national state. They are no longer citizens and hence no rights to claim. Ruptures in families means they have lost their families, or even if they have families, they are not able to live like a family because they are in refugee camps. Struggle for economic mobility refers to all the trouble and effort they have to take to make a living of their own, to reach financial stability. Yet another difficulty they have to face is the difference in the value system. The value system in the host country may be entirely different from the value system of the native country. What was considered right in the native country could be considered wrong in the host country, and vice versa. Because of all these reasons, rerouting themselves in a host country, in a new place, is an extremely difficult task. Now the author brings in two different approaches in the study of ethnic groups, assuming that it would help to understand the problems of refugees. The first is the primordialist approach. The primordialist approach considers ethnic identity, conceives ethnic identity as rooted in similarities. It could be similarity of physical appearance, the use of a common language, or maybe followers of the same religion. So ethnic identity is understood to be something eternal that persists through change. That's a primordialist approach. That means people who speak the same language have the same ethnicity. People who follow the same religion have the same ethnicity. So this is a primordialist approach. And the primordialist approach assumes that the problems faced by this ethnic group across the world are same. Now the second approach is optional situational approach. Optional situational approach understands ethnic identity as an ongoing process in which the individuals define themselves with respect to others in different ways. That means what I have may be the same in different cultures, in different societies, but depending on the nature of that society, my concept of identity, my sense of identity changes. To further explain this optional situational approach, the author borrows social construction of reality. Social construction of reality is the process by which people create their own version of what is real via interaction with each other. Therefore, in conclusion, we can say that optional situational approach is better to understand the problems of refugees. And with that, Mallika Misra ends this essay. Thank you so much. Bye.